it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hello, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. A lovely guest, Dr. Donna Marks, has been an award-winning author, consultant, educator, public speaker, licensed psychotherapist, and addiction counselor in private practice in the Palm Beach, Florida area for more than 30 years. In 1989, Dr. Marks developed a chemical dependency treatment program at the Palm Beach Community College that has since grown into a 4-year degree program, and for which she was granted an award of appreciation. Dr. Donna Marks is exceptional in her field, and it is my joy and pleasure to bring you to her success story and hear a lovely conversation. Donna, thank you for joining me today.
I am so excited to be on your show. Thank you. And as I told you, I was watching some of your other podcasts, and you have some really fascinating women. And it's so beautiful that you are empowering women. I think too often we compete, and we've been kind of trained that way. And to empower one another is such a blessing.
And, I will say, back in the day, at least in my time, and you could join, I'm not going to throw you under my bus on age. You could join in and wear what works for you. But, based on our years and the bio, we're kind of aligned here.
Yes.
In our time, women did compete with one another because there was only room for one woman in the lead. So yes, everybody was fighting for that same position. Today, I'm thrilled to say, the powers that be have shifted, the energy has shifted, and we are working to empower and move together as an entire, women's movement. I hate to say that because it's a little cliche at this point, but how we're creating consistent change for women leaders.
Yes, but it's a loving and spiritually fit women's movement, different than burning bras and things like that. We grew up, witnessing older people doing. But yes, and I'm here in Palm Beach, and it's still very, very competitive and cruel, very cruel. And there's still the mean girls thing going on at all ages. So it's refreshing to be a part of other than that, to bring together, to love, to empower each other. Because when I empower you or you empower me, you're getting more out of that by empowering me than I'm getting out of it.
It's
the law of attraction.
The law of attraction and that old win-win. Yeah, this is a win-win,
yes,
ladies.
Yes,
so
exactly. I will lose nothing from empowering you. I will gain everything. Yes.
I love that. So let's look a little bit. You're a leader, a trailblazer, true trailblazer in your industry, in your area for a long time going back. How did you end up getting attracted to the field of psychotherapy and then the field of addiction?
Well, that's kind of two different stories. I was addicted to, I was attracted, addicted is probably a better word. I was addicted. That's the other part of the story. But I was attracted to psychotherapy because I was kind of like the family therapist and the go-to person that people went to in school. And I just had a very strong spiritual connection early on. So I really tried to understand and help people and soothe them and comfort them. So it was something I was born into. Then I was also born into addiction and developed addictions myself as a result of a lot of trauma that went on and my own choices, my own bad choices. I've done so much healing that I don't even think about it anymore. But I said I'll never never have an addiction problem, having witnessed it. And then I found it was, a really good escape from emotional pain and insecurities and all that. And I didn't always control things, but, eventually it got me. And so I was sort of living a dual life, one of very functional and very, my word was my word. And I got married when I was 16 to get out of a dysfunctional house. I was divorced with a child by the time I was 18. And I was working as a waitress, and something inside of me said, you can do better than this, so there was this duel of listening to that spiritual side of myself and wanting to be better, and not understanding that the addiction had already partially hijacked my mind. So this went on for quite some time, but I did go to night school to get my high school degree, and I studied business courses, shorthand and typing and bookkeeping, and in addition to the history and English that was required to get my degree. And then I worked in a secretarial position at the courthouse, and then an attorney offered me a job. So I worked as a legal secretary and went to college. And then at the time, it wasn't like now where there was loans and grants.
Right. I want to interrupt you for a second here,
okay.
Because it is not easy when decisions are made in our early years to shift that trajectory. And I want to acknowledge and applaud you for persevering and staying on track with with being a single parent in your teen years, right? And staying and coming from that dysfunctional family that you might not have had the role models, and setting that course for yourself and navigating it forward is not easy in great situations.
Right.
And you did it during challenging times, in a challenging situation and incredibly young.
Yes, it was really, really hard. My mom was very supportive, and she helped me with childcare. But there was nothing like now with all the childcare available, the food assistance, the education. There was nothing. So it was bare bones, and it was stressful. And being a single parent without a participating father was incredibly stressful, and I was not the best mom that I could be. My daughter will tell you that, and I've done my part in trying to heal whatever I can with that. But I never lost sight of this vision that I would be a therapist. And so even though I went on and off course, and I attribute that mostly to addiction, I did stay on course in my career. And I never wanted to have an addiction problem. I didn't want to be with anybody that had addiction problems. I was married several times, and with addictions. And some of my children, none of them drink or do anything now, but I went through that with them, and not all of them, some of them, and just had a lot of setbacks. But I said, why can't I get away from this? I just can't understand why I can't get away from this whole addiction thing. I couldn't stand it. And then when I started in my practice, what did I get? I got referrals from people with addiction. I'm like, anything but that. I don't want to work with alcoholics or addicts, anything but that. I'm sick of it. And of course I didn't recognize, because I was so highly functioning, that I was one of them. Eventually I realized that this was not a curse. It was a blessing. And I probably chose it before I even got here, because that's my mission. Now I understand it. It all made sense once I embraced it, that it's not a curse. It's something, things are made to get us addicted. I'm not blaming, I'm just saying, alcohol has a very high content of alcohol. It's not necessary to have that much. The sugar that's put into sugary things is highly addictive. And gambling is designed to get you hooked. I mean, porn, all these things are not made for cigarettes. They're not made for moderate use. They're made to get you wanting more and more and more. And they stimulate that part of the brain. So there are so many people who are addicted, like myself, who don't realize it, or don't want to realize it, or don't acknowledge it, or don't understand it. And so for me to have experienced it as a child, as an adult, as a lover, as a parent, and as a therapist is the perfect training to help people. And not just with addictions, with the mental health component, whether they have an addiction or not. Because I've had to overcome all of that as well from the trauma that I went through. So I now know it's a blessing. it's a complete blessing. And that's why I wrote the book, which won 25 awards.
Yeah. So
Exit the Maze.
let's talk a little bit about the book. So the title of the book is.
Well, it just got revised, so we changed the title, but the original copy, and there's still about 10 copies left that people could order online, either on Facebook or on my website, but signed copies. But it's called Exit the Maze: One Addiction, One Cause, One Cure. The revised edition that will be distributed by Simon & Schuster and published by Beyond Words Publishing is supposed to come out in December, although there are shortages, so it may be delayed a little bit. But the title of that is One Addiction, One Cause, One Solution.
Nice. Great shift in title. Great shift in title.
Thank you.
So, in building, let's look at the business side of this. Okay. So psychotherapists, there's a lot of avenues can take. And once you make that decision to start building a private practice, and then you got into education, how did you learn how to do that? It's so often people say, like, Ivy, you work with so many people in the professional space. I said, what they don't teach you in so many of the professional schools is actually how to run the business portion of it.
Right.
How did you start? First of all, what caused you to start hanging out a shingle, opening your own door and running a private practice?
Well, that wasn't my plan. My plan was to work somewhere and get more experience. But every time I applied somewhere, I wasn't hired. I don't know why. They never gave me an explanation. I applied for the state. I applied for the county. There's many, many positions. I was concerned that the pay was so low because I would make more as a waitress than with a master's degree. But anyhow, I was willing to do it. I ultimately wanted to go into private practice. But since I couldn't get a job in private practice, and working for someone else, I decided to go into private practice. And that was also one of those serendipitous things where I ran into a former colleague and he was ready to open up a private practice. So we did that together. And even though we were not yet licensed, it was perfectly ethical and legal to do it as long as we did it under the supervision of a licensed professional. So we got Dr. Badger was his name, and he supervised us for the 2-year requirement prior to taking our boards for licensure. So then the business part was natural for me. Even as a kid, I liked making money. My stepfather, we were stationed in Labrador, and I used to have a cotton candy machine. I'd make cotton candy and sell it out the back porch. And I started making cookies and fudge. It was just something I really enjoyed doing, cooking and also making money. So it was just kind of natural. And I, studied some different things along the way. I took Tony Robbins' business mastery course in Fiji, and I read a lot of things like The 1 Minute Millionaire, Think and Grow Rich, all the classics. And my favorite was Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, because that really reinforces that we all have a gift. And when we apply spiritual principles, which means having the utmost integrity, I really feel that it's very, very important to be your word. And money is just another symbol of being that word. And
I definitely want to give a shout out. I think Think and Grow Rich in my early years was one of the most impactful books that I read, because it was mindset and action.
Yes, exactly. And not just trying to make money or not just trying to accomplish something, but giving meaning and purpose to both of those things. So I practice the spiritual principles concerning money. And I think that's why I continue to make more and more money. I tithe. I do it to nonprofit agencies, but I'm always doing it. Even with bad service, I'll try to give a 50% tip. It keeps me unattached to it, and yet I'm sharing it. So the more you share, the more your pipe opens to receive. So it's just kind of a natural thing. And so then during COVID, I just published my book. And so that kind of, didn't go well as it could have had. I couldn't get on podcasts like I can now and things like that. Although they did come to me, I have to say, I was on a few, but I kind of meditated about what to do because people were canceling appointments and panicking, and I had zero fear. because of my spiritual connection. I feel that the way that God made me, I have a beautiful, healthy immune system, and it can sustain whatever might happen. And, I also feel that I do have a birth certificate. I do not have a death certificate. So when it's time, it's time.
You know what? I happen to love that attitude. I really do. Is we have birth certificates and we don't have, so we live. We are committed to living. When I saw the onset of COVID and I saw so much fear starting to circle around in business and in life, and, shifting from, I was like, well, anybody I touch is just going to move forward, because this is not, might not have had a global pandemic before, but we certainly did navigate quite a few obstacles in the world. Yeah. And in my life and business and different hurdles and different times. And I was like, this is what we move through.
Yes.
What stops?
Yes. And I've been teaching A Course in Miracles since 1986. And, you choose fear, you choose love. And it does take time to integrate all these concepts, by the way. I'm not just saying I picked up the book and, I'm so spiritual. I'm so rich, It has to be integrated. You have to move through those resistances. And so to be, and the same thing with my own recovery, it didn't just happen like that. It was a process to get to the point of just feeling so happy and so peaceful all the time, no matter what's going on, including a world pandemic. So I was meditating about, what am I going to do? My patients are canceling. They don't want to come in. They're in fear. They don't want to even do Zoom. So it just came to me like, shift your whole practice now. You've written a couple of books, and just work with a few people at a time and offer a concierge service. I have felt for a long time that treatment has failed. The industry has failed. People go in and out of mental health centers and addiction treatment centers over and over and over again, because they're not recognizing that there's just one problem, and that's that addiction will shift around and mental health problems will shift around. And so you've got to get to that core level of healing. And more importantly, people have to learn how to replace the addiction with love, because every maladaptive behavior is trying to get that feeling of love. Right. I love chocolate cake. I love my scotch. I love to go to the casino. Well, they're just getting a feeling that they're substituting for real love. And so what I do in my concierge practice is I teach them how to heal the wound. I have a lot of different training, which kind of brings us back to an earlier question in the training. The mental health counselor license was so inadequate. It was just a broad overview that you could have read in 4 hours and gotten as much out of it.
It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yes. So I then went and got certified in Gestalt therapy, which is experiential, and it helped me personally. And so I got certified in it to be able to use it in my practice. And then I got certified in hypnosis to help people learn how to overcome anxiety or any other issues that they've got going on. I did some training in NLP under Bandler. I still wasn't healed, so I did 13 years of psychoanalysis and got certified in psychoanalysis, which was an additional 4 years of education and supervision. And the 13 years of my personal analysis was because I wanted to. I really, for the first time in my life, bonded with a maternal figure who was such a blessing to me. Although psychoanalysis has a very limited understanding of addiction, just like addictions therapists have very limited understanding of how to really help people from a psychoanalytic perspective, which is very important to have those core principles of transference and the object relations, and how people have a failure to bond with a safe object and things like that. So I did that, and then got certified in addictions along the way. And also they made a law that if you see couples, you can't talk about sex. So I had to get my sex certification also. So there's a lot of tools in my toolbox, so to speak, that I draw from when I'm working in the concierge program with people. So they can come in for treatment. A lot of times people fly in here to Palm Beach. There's some boutique hotels right around my office, and we'll do a couple of days of intensive, and then we can finish on Zoom or in person, whichever they prefer. but it's very intensive and it covers all the bases. And then they can continue if they want after a month, or they can, continue with their life, which is ideal.
So what do you see in the future as far as other psychotherapy, as far as psychotherapy as a industry, as a practice? What is changing, evolving, or should be changing and evolving?
Well, I don't know how much changing and evolving is occurring, although I do notice in people's writings that they are talking a lot more about psychoanalytic types of things like attachment disorders and things like that. But what I would like to see is that I have yet to see a family that didn't have addiction. Either the child or a parent or a close relative, a spouse. I have yet, and sometimes it's subtle, like maybe it's an attorney who's highly recognized and highly successful, who goes home every night and belts down 5 or 6 strong drinks. Doesn't drink during the day, might have a little bit of the jitters, makes it till 5 o'clock, out of the office, and that's a highly functioning alcoholic. There's just so many things that we don't see and don't necessarily understand. Somebody with obesity most likely has a food addiction or a sugar addiction. There's just so many tentacles. So I would like to see mental health studies really go into this and help people to look for it. And then in the field of addiction, to have more training in the psychoanalytic concepts, which are almost every psychotherapy process is a branch off of Freud. He doesn't get credit for it, but it all started with him. And there was a couple other more obscure people that were along with him, but all the different methods are branches of what he labeled and talked about, and they kind of taken one component and run with it, whether it's even cognitive therapy or family therapy or objects relations or whatever. It all started with him. So I'd like to see that, and I'd also like to see treatment centers wake up. Why are you having the same person come there over and over and over again and not doing anything different? And then you're telling them the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yet the treatment industry is doing that. So I'd like to see them be able to have the consciousness that it's not hard to stop addiction. It's easy, actually. You have to convert the addiction into something meaningful. In my case, it converted into a career. But any addiction can be converted into a career. If someone's gambling, they're great with numbers. Go study accounting, statistics. If someone's a food or sugar addict, become an expert in sugar-free sweets, start a business selling it. There's not enough of it on the shelf. It would fly off of there. Or become a gourmet health nut with your own TV show. People who take prescription drugs know more than pharmacists. So go to pharmacy school and make a career of it rather than all these self-destructive things can be converted into pure loving energy and productivity and meaning. So
I happen to love that. I really do. And I want to repeat it, that you take the addiction and shift it to loving energy.
Yes.
I think is a beautiful thing and a beautiful way show focus and shift.
Thank you. And it does work. And
it's really powerful.
You don't think about the addiction anymore. You think about what you're doing instead, that you're enjoying, and you're not waking up, feeling guilty. You're not going in debt. You're not getting DUIs. You're not doing things that you would never do sober. You're not hijacked anymore. The hardest thing is stopping. The easiest thing is staying stopped, as long as you convert the energy to love. As long as you stay in that place of I want, and listen to that part of your mind, then you will continue to be under the spell. But as soon as you say, wait a minute, what is that? That's not helping me. That's not love. That's, it's not worth it. It's not worth the 5 minutes of the hit to suffer. I'm done. So when we convert the addiction, every addiction is a substitute for love. So when we substitute every addiction with a loving behavior, we walk away from it like any other bad relationship. Like, I'm done. We don't need to talk about it anymore. I wish you well. I love you. I bless you. I set you free. We're done. And then you very quickly can be restored to a very happy state of mind, because I believe that we're born that way. So when addiction centers can understand that and understand that there's only one addiction. I have a patient right now who has a gambling problem, and she tried to get into a treatment center. Oh, we don't treat gambling. I'm like, why not? It's the same treatment, the same disease. Yeah. So there should be Addictions Anonymous and treatment for addiction, and help people to understand that. Because if they don't, they leave alcohol free, and then they go to AA meetings and they get attracted to someone. Then they go into a sex addiction thing, or they leave, Drug Addicts Anonymous and they start gambling, or, it's just never ending. They stop smoking and they start eating. I worked with one woman who had gastric bypass surgery for an eating disorder. They never treated the disorder. They only treated the symptom. And then she started drinking. And if you look online, it's a very common problem with gastric bypass surgery. So we've got a long way to go. And yes, my voice is to get that message out as often and frequently as I can.
Well,
to save lives.
Dr. Donna Marks, this always talking to you is so interesting that there's so much to learn. There's so much to ask. I cannot thank you enough for joining me here today on Her Success Story. How can our listeners reach out, connect to you, learn more about when your book publishes, etc.? So
the book, everything that they need to know is right on my website, www.drdonnamarks.com. And they can sign up for the registration list, which would notify them of when I'm teaching A Course in Miracles classes. And also I do a weekly blog, so they would automatically receive that. And all the blogs are posted there, as well as 3 free meditations.
Love that. Well, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much.
And listeners, this is how we close out the show. If you listened today and something resonated with you, take that moment and say, what did I take away? What was meaningful to me? And what action are you going to take from that? Also, of course, hit subscribe and share Her Success Story forward with anybody else, all other women leaders who you think this could be an asset to and could be interesting for. Thank you for joining us here today at Her Success Story.